We have been measuring school success all wrong. Our endless focus on test scores and superficial school ratings, or on a single narrow definition of intelligence, is the very thing holding our kids back. For generations, our educational system has operated under a factory model, designed for a rudimentary world that no longer exists. It's a model that sorts and labels, praising one specific kind of book smart while ignoring many others. And it leaves countless students feeling bored, overlooked, and worse, considering themselves failures, all because their strengths aren't recognized. We've all seen the results: burnout teachers, anxious kids, and worried parents who just know in their gut that the system is broken. So let's build a school together, idea by idea, that allows every child to grow from a place of strength. I know people will ask, rightfully so, and how will we prove it works? Well, today we have the answer. I have the data to prove that our revolutionary model isn't just some feel-good experiment, but a genuine game changer for education. In this video, I'm going to show you everything. Not just how to build a thriving school from scratch, but exactly how we measure the things other schools won't, and how we can prove, without a doubt, that our students are being prepared for life, not just a test. Section 1, the broken promise of modern education. The system we have built on the promise of opportunity is broken. That promise was simple: work hard, get good grades, and you'll be set for life. But the world has changed. The skills that actually matter, like logic, empathy, connection, health, and ethical leadership, are the very skills our traditional system is least equipped to teach or measure. For over 100 years, our schools have prioritized just two types of intelligence above all others: linguistic and mathematical. Now, don't get me wrong, those base subjects are important, but they're only two pieces to the vast, complex, and wonderful puzzle that makes up a human being. This narrow system, thrust upon well-intended teachers, creates a domino effect. It creates a pecking order where kids who ace essays are considered smart, while the gifted social leaders, empathetic souls, and incredible friends are often regulated to having hobbies. These aren't hobbies. They're powerful forms of intelligence. And by ignoring them, we fail our kids. We create classrooms where everyone who doesn't fit the mold checks out. They get bored. Study after study shows that when students don't see how learning connects to their own lives, their motivation just tanks. And it's not just the students. Teachers are put into an impossible spot. They go into teaching to light sparks in young minds, but find themselves chained to a curriculum that screams, "Teach to the test." They're forced to prioritize memorization over deep, meaningful learning. This leads to burnout and a tragic flood of talent leaving the profession. Parents are caught in the middle as well. They see their child's genius when they're building a Lego masterpiece, comforting a friend, or organizing a neighborhood game. They see it, but they worry. They worry because the report card doesn't include grades for compassion, social connection, or physical health. They worry their child's real strengths are being ignored. This is the problem we can no longer look away from. It all started many years ago when I was a struggling student and, quite honestly, a floundering individual. Those were the dark days as I finished high school with a 2.2 GPA and no direction. After a 2-year stint in a shipping department where I spent my days piling up boxes, I scraped my way into Ohio State. Early on, it was much the same. However, I was required to take a psychology class my freshman year. And quite frankly, that changed everything, especially when driven by one powerful belief: there has to be a better way to educate children. It became apparent to me this is not a patch on the old system. We needed to build a new one from the ground up, based on a complete and human idea of what it means to be intelligent. I began to formulate a plan, not what it meant to create a successful school, but rather what it meant to be a good human. I stepped into the unknown with a whole lot of skepticism from those around me. The biggest question hung over me: even if you build this dream school, how will you ever prove it's successful when the only language the system speaks is standardized test scores? And that takes us to Section 2, the genius of our revolutionary model, the 5 intelligences. The journey didn't start with building plans, it started with rethinking the very idea of a child. I delved into the groundbreaking research, including the work of Harvard's Howard Gardner and his theory on multiple intelligence, which scientifically confirmed what many of us had known all along. Intelligence isn't a single unified concept. I dove into Maslow's theory on motivation. His theory detailed the basic needs of humans. I learned about Bloom's taxonomy, which highlighted the 6 levels of wisdom development, from basic information to mastery. And while studying neuroscience and child psychology, I realized if we wanted a truly successful school, we had to develop the whole person. After years of research and collaboration and a like-minded school, we developed our own framework, our school's DNA, the 5 intelligence model. This model informs every aspect of what we do. We identified 5 core domains that, when developed together, prepare a child for a life of purpose and well-being. They are intellectual, social, emotional, ethical, and physical intelligence. So what do these actually mean at a school? First, intellectual intelligence. This is one we all know, but we have to look at it in a much broader context. It's not just about knowing stuff. It's about using Bloom's taxonomy to ensure that children learn the basics of remembering, understanding, and applying, but also by analyzing and evaluating and creating as a child progresses towards wisdom. It's asking great questions, connecting dots no one else sees, and finding new solutions to tough problems. Yes, reading, writing, and arithmetic are core to learning, but we do it in a way that builds these deeper skills. Students don't just memorize the periodic table, they use their knowledge of chemistry to solve real-world environmental problems. They don't just learn dates, they debate them, stepping into the shoes of historical figures as they learn to communicate civilly with one another. We cultivate the minds of innovators, not just students who excel at tests. Next is social intelligence. In a world disconnected, being able to work with other people isn't a soft skill anymore, it's a core intelligence. This is your ability to communicate, collaborate, and lead. In many schools, group projects are a chaotic mess. They need to be a cornerstone. We need to explicitly teach students how to work in a team, how to give and receive useful feedback, and how to build consensus. They aren't just learning with each other, they're learning how to learn with each other, a skill that will serve them for their entire lives. In addition, we build a community so that when students depart, they remain connected, allowing them to leverage their relationships to help and support one another throughout life. This is the very essence of social capital, including trust and cooperation. Third on our list is emotional intelligence. This is the bedrock of resilience and well-being. It's knowing what you're feeling, managing it, and handling relationships with empathy. For too long, education has pretended that the heart and the head are separate. We know from neuroscience this is simply incorrect. A child who's anxious or upset is simply not available to learn, regardless of how great the lesson is. So we make the invisible visible. We teach the language of emotions. We practice mindfulness and self-regulation. We help students understand their own strengths, challenges, and passions. This isn't about making a school where no one is ever sad or angry. It's about giving kids the tools to navigate those feelings constructively. The fourth, and the one I believe that is tragically overlooked, is ethical intelligence. This is more than just knowing right from wrong. It's about developing a strong moral compass and the ability to wrestle with complex ethical questions. We don't do this with lectures or morality. We embed ethical dilemmas right into the curriculum. When our students study environmental science, they also discuss the responsibilities of corporations. When they learn about AI, they discuss the concept of algorithmic bias. We're not just growing smart students, we're growing good people and responsible citizens. Finally, there's physical intelligence. This isn't about using your body to solve problems and create things. It's not just gym class. It's fine and gross motor skills. Yes, but it's also understanding the vital link between physical health and mental clarity. Our learning is active. Students might use their bodies to model the planets, act out a historical event, or build a giant model of a cell. We recognize that many people think best when they're moving, eating right, and sleeping well. By respecting the mind-body connection, we create a school that's more dynamic, more engaging, and better for every single student. The magic of this is these five intelligences don't live in separate boxes. They're all connected. A student's growing confidence in a physical activity might empower them to lead a team. Grappling with the rules of a game strengthens their sense of fairness. The focus learned on the field can improve their concentration in math. And learning from wins and losses builds emotional resilience. That's the special part of this model. Growth in one area sparks growth everywhere else. Our mission was to build an ecosystem where that would happen. So, how do we build this ecosystem? Section 3. A great model on paper is worthless. The real trick is bringing it to life in your day-to-day actions of a school. How do you actually build an environment that fosters the five intelligences? For me, it meant rethinking everything. It started with the space itself. Traditional schools are built for control. Rows of desks, long hallways, and bells signaling when to move. Our school just feels different. We have big tables for collaborative work, quiet nooks for solo reflection, and making spaces filled with materials for building and tinkering. Our walls aren't just walls, they're living galleries of student work. We have a school garden and a nearby stream where the students get their hands dirty and connect with the natural world. The building itself sends a message. Learning is an active personal journey. Of course, a pretty building and beautiful nature is nothing without the right curriculum. This was a huge challenge. People always ask, how can teachers possibly plan for the five intelligences? It sounds exhausting, but that's not the goal. The goal is to design a rich learning experience that offers multiple entry points for students. So what does this actually look like? Let's say we're teaching a lesson on forest growth. In a typical class, you might read a chapter and label a diagram. That works for some kids. Here's our way. The core goal is the same, to understand timbering, animal habitats, and ecosystem. However, students will participate in an ecological project where we segment different natural areas on campus. The areas vary from clear cutting to minor deadwood removal, and every stage in between. Every student will learn the necessary information, understand its impact, and apply that knowledge by writing in their journals, encompassing those first three levels of Bloom's taxonomy. They will additionally analyze the outcomes as they review the stages, evaluating the impact as they record tree growth, animal population migration, and species development, the three higher levels of Bloom's. In addition to this intellectual development, they will discuss the impact, social intelligence, empathize with plants and animals, emotional intelligence, and consider the right and wrong of the actions, ethical intelligence. They will be physically required to travel to the area, experiencing physical exertion, and they will also consider what this is doing to our physical environment. See, every student is learning the same core concept, but they can access and experience this understanding through their strengths. This doesn't just make learning more enjoyable, it also makes it more effective, and it completely changes how kids see themselves. The student who struggles with essays, but is a gifted speaker, now has a chance to shine and demonstrate their knowledge. Their confidence skyrockets. This brings us to the most crucial piece of the puzzle, our teachers. Our model demands that a teacher becomes less of a sage on the stage and more of a guide on the side. They are facilitators, coaches, and keen observers. This represents a significant shift, and it requires substantial support. We train our teachers to see a fidgety kid not as a discipline problem, but maybe as a physical learner who needs to move to think. They learn how to design these multi-layered lessons, and most importantly, how to access learning in a way that captures growth in all five domains. Our school is a symphony of purposeful activity, all designed to be fertile ground where every kind of intelligence can flourish. This also requires that we view our teachers in a similar manner. A great school must prioritize teachers' intellectual growth through professional development and their social community by cultivating a civil environment that promotes connectedness. When considering a teacher's emotional wellness, great care must be taken to offer reasonable class sizes and schedules so they can regulate themselves during and after school. Ethically, administration must be transparent and ensure trust and satisfaction. Finally, even the physical health of the teachers should be highlighted. Wellness days, nutritious lunches, and plenty of time to rest. That takes us to section 4, the proof, measuring what truly matters. This is where skepticism usually kicks in. It's one thing to have a nice philosophy, but it's another to prove it works. So, how do we measure kindness? How do you quantify ethical growth? How do you show you're successful when you've thrown out the old yardstick? We started by admitting a hard truth. Standardized tests are a terribly blunt instrument for measuring the things we care about most. Therefore, we had to build a new assessment toolkit from scratch. I call it our comprehensive progress profile. Here's what's in it. First, both an ability-based assessment and a performance-based assessment. The goal is to measure the individual difference between a child's ability and their actual performance. Regardless of whether the child has a 90 ability score or a 140 ability score, the goal is to consider the child's individual progress. If a school is successful, good schools will ensure that children perform to their own ability. Schools that do not apply this holistic methodology will likely underperform. In this case, the children will perform below their ability. Finally, when this holistic approach is adopted and mastered, like at our school, children not only reach their full potential, but they exceed it. This is what I label as the above performance level. Imagine if 90% of your students performed above their own personal ability level. That's what our faculty and staff can proudly claim. Second, to measure the immeasurables. We use a mix of surveys, faculty and staff, family and student surveys. We use surveys to track things like wisdom development, social connectedness, emotional regulation, ethical expectations, and physical health. Our teachers also use observational tools to note progress in social and emotional skills, such as a student's ability to listen to another point of view, or the grit when facing a challenging problem. This isn't about judging personalities. It's about identifying where kids need support and acknowledging how far they've come. Finally, when we find a child experiencing difficulty, we consider the struggle through the lens of the 5 intelligences. As an example, just because a child is struggling in math, we don't assume that it's a math problem with a math solution. We consider how the child approaches the intellectual task, as well as whether the child has friends, is emotionally regulated, ethically sound, and even if the child is active enough, eating well, and sleeping soundly. No stone unturned. We get to the root of the issue. So what are the results? What does the data show? Simply put, the results have been incredible. On the very standardized tests, our model critiques, our students consistently perform above the level of their peers in traditional schools. This was our first breakthrough. It has been proven that when you teach to the whole child, academic achievement actually receives a boost. The research supports this finding. Studies revealed that robust social-emotional learning programs can enhance academic performance by an average of 10 percentage points. I learned of this in my dissertation. Our school's living proof of that data, but that's just the start. Our growth profiles show the success that other schools can't even see. We have data showing significant decline in discipline issues and a substantial increase in satisfaction, trust, and the belief in the core values. Parents often tell us, "My child used to hate school. Now I can't keep them home." Or, "For the first time, my daughter sees herself as a leader." This is where we can demonstrate the model's seriousness. Let me tell you about a student. We'll call him Leo. When Leo came to us, he was quiet, and his old school had labeled him a struggling student due to his difficulties with reading. But our analysis showed he had off-the-charts communication skills and ethical skills. He could discuss any topic and always explain why something was essential based on integrity. So we leaned into his strengths. We put him in charge of leading a civil conversation. For the first time, he was a leader. He had to collaborate, use ethical justifications, and solve real problems. And he lit up. His confidence soared. And here's the funny thing. His anxiety around reading faded because now it had a purpose. He had to read the argument and write out lists. By the end of the year, his literary skills had jumped multiple grade levels. But more importantly, Leo saw himself as intelligent. His portfolio didn't tell a story of a struggling student. It told the story of a young gentleman of integrity and a skilled orator. That is a success story a standardized test could never tell. If this vision for education speaks to you, if you believe we need to change the definition of a successful school, then we invite you to join us. I have a new book coming out in April titled Emergence: How Modern Convenience is Dumbing Down Our Children and What Parents and Schools Can Do About It. It is a manifesto on creating schools with a holistic purpose. If you'd like to see more transformational stories, please subscribe to this channel. The most powerful thing you can do is share this video with other parents and educators who care about the future of children. Together we can change the world. In conclusion, I started this whole journey with a simple question. What if we're measuring success all wrong in schools? With a small idea, fueled by the belief that our kids are more than just a score, and that schools should help every facet of their intelligence shine, we rejected the old factory model and chose to build something new, dedicated to nurturing complete human beings. We built a skill on the 5 intelligences: intellectual, social, emotional, ethical, and physical. We designed an entire ecosystem where students became not just knowledgeable, but also creative, compassionate, resilient, and principled. And most importantly, we met the challenge of skeptics. We developed a new way to measure growth that honors the whole child, and we proved it's possible to measure what truly matters. The data shows this approach not only leads to happier, more well-rounded kids, but it also boosts the very academic outcomes the old system prizes. You don't have to choose between well-being and achievement. They feed each other. The story of our school is more than just a story. It's proof of a concept. It's a blueprint for a more hopeful, more effective, and more human way to educate. The future requires a new kind of school, and we think we've found the answer. This isn't the end of our experiment. It's the beginning of a revolution for students, loving teachers, and hopeful parents. Thank you for watching, and stay strong.